opening the school, I will take my nation's revenge. The Turks tried to destroy us, but these orphans will go on to rebuild our homeland and become our new leaders.
These are the words spoken by Garabed Melkonian in 1926 while he was establishing the Melkonian orphanage in Cyprus. The genocide had devastated the Armenian nation, leaving tens of thousands of orphans roaming around the deserts of Anatolia like stray dogs, hopeless and destitute. A number of orphanages had already been set up throughout the Middle East to gather and give shelter to these lost souls. However, the need was too great, and a lot more was needed. The Melkonian orphanage played a critical role in meeting that need. It became one of the major drivers in the revitalization of the Armenian race, from the brinks of calamity, not as an orphanage, but as a premier bastion of Armenian education. Garabed Melkonian and his older brother Krikor were born in Kayseria in western Armenia. Although they didn't have much formal education, that did not prevent them from becoming successful businessmen, as well as two of the most important benefactors in the history of the Armenian nation. Garabed and Grigor Melkonian moved away from home at a very young age. They first moved to Istanbul, then to Bulgaria, and finally settled in Egypt in 1880. The brothers spent many long years working at street corners as tobacco sellers, wrapping one cigarette at a time and saving one gold coin at a time. The Melkonian brothers, using their life savings, established their first tobacco factory in Egypt in the mid-1880s. By the early 1900s, Melkonian tobacco became one of the biggest producers in the Middle East and a widely recognizable brand. After the start of the First World War, their supply of tobacco arriving from the Far East at the Alexandria harbor multiplied the brothers' wealth vastly. Large amounts of tobacco in hand was now worth 100 times more. Accumulating money, however, was never a priority for these humble and kind brothers. Seeing the devastation of their people had saddened their hearts, so much that the elder brother, Krikor, had liquidated his shares in the company to use the money to open an orphanage for girls. Sadly, his dreams were cut short by his death in 1920 at the age of 78. After the passing of his brother, Garabed Melkonian took charge and embarked on realizing his brother's dream as well as his own. Having never married with no children, he allocated his brothers and his entire fortune to establishment of institutions to help the children of his people. In 1921, the Melkonian Fund was handed over to Armenian Patriarchate of Istanbul with the intentions of creating 3 schools throughout Western Armenia and Kilikia. However, the worsening political situation in Turkey towards Armenians and Christians forced a change of plans. After contemplating about Italy, Syria, Lebanon, and Greece, Garabed Melkonian and the Patriarch settled in Cyprus as the location for the new orphanage. In 1923, a plot of land was purchased in the outskirts of Nicosia, in a deserted area known as Blossoming Hill. When asked why he selected such a remote area so far from the city, Garabed Melkonian said it was because of the view. Not a single minaret was visible from the location, which was a requirement so the orphans would not be upset. The construction lasted almost 3 years. In addition to the 2 main buildings, one for girls and the other one for boys, the Melkonian complex was contained with an infirmary, a teacher's quarters, a water tower, a kitchen, laundry, print shop, as well as an art center. Before the construction was completed, the complex was handed over to the Armenian General Benevolent Union through an agreement that was signed in 1925. Making AGBU its sole caretaker. In addition to running the orphanage, the agreement also instructed AGBU to allocate annual funds to the Patriarchates of Istanbul and Jerusalem, the Yerevan State University, the Academy of Sciences, the Melkonian Kindergarten in Alexandria, the Surp Perkic Armenian Hospital of Istanbul, as well as various charities throughout Armenia and the diaspora. After the first few years of the operation, the Melkonian Orphanage became the Melkonian Educational Institute, a secondary school offering education of the highest standards, not only in Armenian subjects, but in core subjects as diverse as English language, mathematics, physics, chemistry, and the arts, and many more. Soon, a few of the Armenian intellectuals who had survived the genocide came to teach, amongst them poet Vahan Tikeyan and writer Hakov Oshagan, making the school a new hub of intellectual activity, producing the next generation of teachers, writers, musicians, and community leaders of the diaspora. Garabed Melkonian divided his time between Cyprus and Egypt. While in Cyprus, he stayed at the villa, which was his residence on the school campus next to the girls' building. He greatly enjoyed looking out the window where he could see the fruits of his labor, Melkoniansi boys and girls full of life, immersed in their studies, building a bright future. He loved watching them compete against each other in friendly games or work side by side in creating art of the most beautiful kind. He also loved to see in their tender moments of flirting with each other, casting glances and holding hands, binding their hearts in passionate love, ensuring the future survival of his nation. As tears trickled down his cheeks, he often wished his brother was also beside him, watching out the window, seeing the new generation of their people that had not only survived, but blossomed. That was a victory of the sweetest kind. We bow our heads in gratitude to our dear benefactors, your Melkoniansi children.